Sasa had two particularly great Gwen games last split, and I think teams after that were just like, nah, we're good. We're not going to worry about it too much. So not surprising to see that consistently taken away. I think it's really going to tell us a lot what this first pick is and what direction NIP want to go. You know, if they want to go for that early game play style like you recommended, they're going to need to do so here. But as, again, we talked about, Doinb loving those macro-oriented picks coming out of the mid lane, and it will be Galio as that first locked. I was honestly shocked they didn't take it for either Solokill or Doinb in the previous game, but they're not going to make that mistake twice here.
And please, please, please let this mean that Naiyou gets to play something that does a little bit more damage. If we have to see like back-to-back tank games combined with like an already having like a tank solo laner here for this guy would be a little bit disappointing, I should say. Won't have the Pantheon or the Vi, obviously. There's that Jax that we were mentioning is flexible between Sasa and Climber. Both have played it just this season, let alone having it be a part of their careers in years past. See what they want to match up here. I mean, you have to imagine this is going towards the mid lane here, the Galio. So maybe XQW can lock something in early or can wait for this R3 before the second phase.
And it looks like we might be getting rid of the flex pretty quickly here, Grapes, as it looks like it will be the Lee Sin locked in for Climber. You know, we're seeing Lee Sin still pretty popular. Received quite a few nerfs on this patch. This is, of course, 15-14. So, you know, we'll see how this champion ends up operating. We saw it really successful for Naiyou yesterday. Climber's going to get the chance to showcase his skills on this champion as well, but it could just be the macro duo. You wanted an aggressive champion here for Naiyou. Nocturne makes a ton of sense. For the Galio. I was really hoping we were going to get that. I want Naiyou to play something aggressive, but it's going to be the Rakan locked in. This is still good. Niket, a great playmaker, and I think you're really starting to shape out a lot of your engage and your protection. Just an all-around general start to the draft here for NIP.
I mean, Nocturne Rakan overall, pretty good as well, so we still have the opportunity to see that one locked in, but we could see some more carry potential with this Viego. I mean, we already talked about hovers. That's, again, not something we're supposed to do, but there it is. Locked in here for the NIP jungler. His first real chance at a carry. You can maybe count Lee Sin as a carry as he played that in game number 2 against LNG just yesterday, but this time the ball is really in his hands.
Yeah, and this is what we were asking for. We asked for something there where Naiyou could just go out and be aggressive, and lo and behold, here we are. It'll be interesting to see what the answer will be from a composition perspective on the other side, but it's going to be the Ahri. So you want to talk about LGD opting into pressure in the mid game? This is oddly familiar to their game 1 comp. It's not quite the same as the Taliyah Xin Zhao that they got in game number 1, but the Lee Sin and Ahri both still wanting to find a lot of picks in the mid game, both still want to keep their foot on the gas.
Curious to see how that matches up against this Viego Galio specifically. Obviously, Ahri's going to have that range advantage to push these waves up at least a little bit in the early stages of things. So we got a lot's going to be on Climber. On this Lee Sin, it's always a very volatile champion. However, it is one of his most played throughout his entire career. So definitely has a lot of experience on this one as we head into the second phase of the draft. Top laner have to be selected here on the side of NIP, whereas LGD are looking for a full bottom lane. The Ezreal going to get taken away from Savior. So it looks like they are wanting to make sure that some of those safer options are off the board.
That's exactly it. It's just too safe right now with the comp that they've constructed. They want to put that pressure into Lee Sin. They want to put it into Ahri. They don't want to have to worry too much about the bot lane. There aren't a ton of safe AD carries left, though. We could perhaps be seeing something like a Xayah come through as the answer to take that away from a potential Xayah Rakan on the other side. Keeps yourself safe with the ultimate. It is just going to be the Alistar banned out alongside the Renekton and the Kennen top lane bans that kind of answer Jax relatively efficiently on the top side, can make some pretty big teamfight impacts with some flanks. We'll see if they do want to take away that Xayah, if they want to allow it over to Ninjas in Pyjamas, or if they just want to go for their engaged support right now. I think all options are viable. It will be the Leona lock-in, though.
Okay, we'll see what exactly NIP want to do to try to match up against this. They obviously already have the Rakan, but now seeing a little bit more, you can now find something for Leave that could potentially, keep himself alive a little bit further. There's a lot of dive threat now on LGD, so the Sivir having the spell shield and having the Thrill of the Hunt with the ultimate for a little bit extra movement speed might be a good option. Already have some good peel with the Galio as well. So now we get to see what Solokill wants to play into this Jax, one of Sasi's specialties.
Yeah, if it is going to be something a little bit more aggressive in lane, that makes a lot of sense. You want to try and take Sasi out of his comfort zone. You want to see him struggle in the early game. If you're a Ninjas in Pyjamas fan, he's pretty consistently been able to generate these gold leads in these isolated matchups. You want something that can be a bit more favorable for Solokill. They're going to lock that in here with the Aatrox, something that I do think is very good into the Jax. I think this is a very strong 1v1 pick and really should make it more difficult for the Jax to scale in the same kind of way that something like Rumble did last game. But it does lock in the composition here, and pretty straightforward in terms of how NIP want to play. You've got the Viego and the Sivir in the late game to be able to get those resets and, you know, burst through the front line in team fights, and you've got protection coming out from the Galio mid lane interruption, but it will be Savior's Draven as the answer here on R5, and oh boy, is that an exciting one.
I think he might have only played it like once or twice last split, but it's always a factor in these fearless drafts, especially as you get to game 3, whether it's in the pick or the ban phase. And now Savior, again formerly known as Xiaoya, going to be playing this Draven into a Sivir Rakan lane. I mean, it's a relatively safe one, all things considered, but just a very aggressive team composition from LGD overall, which is a very different look from what we saw from them in their win in game number 2.
Yeah, this is much more like what we saw from them in Split 2, when they were finding their success. This was a team that dominated the early game in Group Nirvana previously. They were constantly up in gold, constantly able to generate pressure in the 2v2 side lane. You mentioned that, oh, you know, Savior didn't get to play a lot of this. It was banned almost 70% of the time against LGD previously. This is a champion that has really not been given over. People know that this is Savior's best champion, and he's going to get the chance to prove it here. Their early game is explosive. If this Draven and Ahri, plus the Lee Sin, can get out of control, there's a lot of playmaking potential, but you gotta be worried about that Sivir, Viego, Galio late game. So much playmaking potential and so much protection coming in for a backline for NIP as well.
It always makes our jobs easier, Kman, when there's such specific identities that each team has drafted for themselves. Early game for LGD, perhaps more to the late game / resets in these team fights for Ninjas in Pyjamas as we await our decisive game number 3. Perhaps a bit of a deviation in terms of the team compositions and the playstyles than we originally had expected. But nonetheless, an exciting one here. NIP looking to stay undefeated. LGD looking to pick up their first win in Split 3. Cheers get a little bit louder for LGD in every game.
Yeah, you got to start believing in this team. You got to start feeling it when it comes to LGD, because they really outplayed NIP towards the end of game number 2. There were so many times where it really felt like NIP was going to be able to run away with the game, but just proper setups, proper execution from LGD allows them to push us to a game 3. And they have one of the more exciting drafts we've seen out of them in quite a while. Interested to see where the level 1s end up going. We see both junglers just posturing on the top side of the map here. No real deep vision placed in the same way that we got out of both games 1 and 2, at least already. But I think that definitely favors NIP in terms of just understanding the game state a bit more, being able to delay a bit more effectively. You know, I'm interested. This is the first time all series long where it really does feel like Solokill has a good matchup on the top side. We'll see if he can, you know, rectify some of the mistakes he's made in the early couple of games and actually generate a lead for himself.
And it's going to be important for him to do so because, as we've kind of alluded to, counter matchups are kind of pushing lanes for LGD in the mid and the bottom side. At least theoretically here, as Savior and YCX should be able to get pretty aggressive. The Zenith blade actually goes wide. And so nice job by leaving Niket to get a little bit of chunk damage down here in this level 1.
Yeah, it's actually a really nice trade for NIP. That engage going wide from Leona matters quite a bit. It's the heal pop to get him range.
This is crazy. I mean, you're level 1, YCX. You don't even have a stun. You just have the Zenith Blade for like a half-second root. Surely not worth it to burn 2 summoner spells there, but maybe, I don't know, that's just me. Establishing dominance and trying to get that level 2 first could be the priority, though. Maybe that is why they decided to do that, is they should get it relatively soon.
Yeah, I know you hear a lot of Draven players talk about that level 2 power spike, but I don't know if burn and heal and ignite is necessarily the direction I would want to go with that. That being said, Savior is going to have lane control here, as you would expect coming out of the Draven Leona lane. No real surprises there. Neither coming out of the mid lane either. No surprises with Ahri, you know, pretty easily being able to shove in down in the mid lane as well. This should just be an early priority kind of gap in favor of LGD. Climber should have a pretty easy time moving around the map and kind of picking what he wants to prioritize in the early game, but his decision and his choices ultimately are going to matter quite a bit towards how this mid game ends up playing out.
So we we get the push, I guess, with those 2 summoner spells, but now you have no summoner spells to take advantage of with the push, right? So Savior and YCX now gonna have to maybe just keep up the pace, although there's just double defensive summoner spells on both NIP's bot laners. It might be a little bit difficult for them to find this 2v2 kill. Might need the help of Climber to get a little bit of that extra damage, as both junglers are pathing down towards the bottom side, and Climber should be able to get here first.
Yeah, no surprise here. Climber going to put a lot of attention into this bot lane, but they have all their sums available.
Okay, Battle Dance is away, and no summoner spells needed. It is a very safe bot lane that has opened up here for NIP. We knew that kind of from the jump. It's going to be a clearing the waves, scaling up, and so far they're doing an okay job of that. And now Naiyou making his way towards the top side. Sasi does not have his wave in a great position. And the Q3 flash,
the flash
coming through for Solokill. Gonna land that initial knockup. Sasi still has his flash and gonna use it in conjunction with the counter strike. But Naiyou will follow it up, and with the final proc of the Blade of the Ruin King will secure first blood for NIP. But now on the bot side, Climber going in, gonna try to dive here, but it's a disaster as YCX falls, and LGD get nothing on the bottom side play.
Oh, and if only they had an Ignite or a heal to be able to help this play in any way. But unfortunately, the dive goes completely awry on the bottom side of the map. Climber might not even be done. He's sticking around.
They have to try. I mean, Leave doesn't have any mana, but he has both of his summoner spells available. The barrier already popped, still has his flash, but the tower is now doing so much. The Savior feats of warfare for NIP as disaster strikes on LGD's side.
Oh, it's just as bad as it could ever possibly be here for LGD. Not only do they give over first blood on the top side of the map, it's a great flash from Naiyou to be able to secure that kill on the Viego, but one of the, quite frankly, sloppiest dives I've seen in quite a while on the bottom side of the map where nothing goes right. It's 3 kills over to NIP. The only saving grace is that only one of them went to the Sivir, and so you're not super concerned about her getting incredibly out of control early on, but this is a game-breaking play. Holy.
You should still be concerned here. Let's take another look at how this one went. Just YCX doesn't even wait. No, yeah, very impatient to try to go in here. Takes a tower shot before any of the minions can do anything for him there.
Yeah, I mean, he stuns before he Zenith Blades, and so he's in a spot where he ends up pressing E, going in and just taking tower shots for nothing. He's not really able to do anything once he's in there, and at this point, I have no idea what they're looking for. You know, Climber ends up taking aggro, but he has to flash out almost immediately. Savior goes in to try and burst down lead, but he doesn't have the damage to do so, and so it just ends up being a completely not worth it trade in favor of Ninjas in Pyjamas, and now we're looking at a huge gold lead in favor of NIP already at 6 minutes into the game.
You know, they are maybe going to face some trouble here as a lot of weird lane reassignments had happened, and it's going to result in Sasa getting heavily targeted here. 4 members of Ninjas in Pyjamas make their way down towards the bottom side to take the enemy top laner down as Naiyou gets his 2nd kill of the game.
Yet another kill for the Viego, and it's all Ninjas in Pyjamas right now. You know, if we were concerned that, you know, maybe NIP wasn't going to be the team we thought they were going to be in Group Nirvana, boy, what a start here in game number 3 to really reassert themselves after some mistakes in game number 2. Even looking forward, you do have the Dragon up now. It will be Infernal as the first Drake, so no Infernal Soul for NIP this game, but they will be able to take that, and Grubs aren't even spawning for a minute 30, so there is no cross-map play for LGD to make.
And you have to wonder, like, LGD, they knew they had the early game composition. We were able to identify it in draft. I'm sure they were able to talk about it as well. Maybe just feeling the pressure a little bit, thinking that they had to go for something. Niket steals it away with a spellbook smite, as Climber can have nothing in this game number 3.
Climber's at 34 CS at 7 minutes into the game on Lee Sin. No kills. This is a disaster scenario for this champion. You will be able to grab the blue buff at the very least. You know, no smite to take that one away, but this is just about as bad of a start for Lee Sin as you could have. Again, Lee Sin was nerfed as a champion on this patch, and so we are kind of seeing the effects of that in terms of the damage and some of these dives, and Sasa once again could be in danger.
Naiyou making a return here to Sasa. All 3 of his kills potentially will have been onto him. Nice Heartbreaker forward is going to put himself on a killing spree.
Yeah, it's just everything going in favor of NIP. Sasa was with his 3rd death pre-8 minutes into the game. We were hyping him up. He's had such a good start to the series in terms of how things have been going. He's been the target in game number 3, and he has been feeding gold over to the side of Ninjas in Pyjamas, specifically to this Viego for Naiyou, and we wanted to see him on carries. Boy, is it looking good at the beginning of this game.
5-0. And again, it felt like LGD thought that they had to flip the game, I guess, 5 minutes in, just to try to get that early game lead, but it really has come back to bite them. And we mentioned that NIP gonna be the heavily favored early games or late game squad, especially now that this Viego has 3 kills. XQW gonna try to find some sort of play to keep this game alive. Climber jumps forward. He does have the Dragon's Rage, but can't get onto Naiyou just yet. The Whirling Death not gonna find anything as well. A ton of resources burned without finding a single kill.
It is still worth it, though, for LGD. At the very least, it looks like they're going to be able to get a couple of these grubs, but Naiyou's making his way back in. He is level 6, but he does not have the ultimate. He used it on Sasa in the bot lane, so it will just be the back off here. LGD will be able to get all 3 of these grubs. With the game state that they're in, this is definitely going to be considered a win for them. It doesn't completely absolve them of their problems, but certainly makes things a little bit more playable for them, perhaps inside lanes moving forward.
A small victory, absolutely, but still a lot of ground to make up, both in terms of the gold lead and also just compositionally speaking, as we mentioned. NIP have a 3-0 Viego now. They have a Sivir that has gotten out to a good start. The one advantage that LGD have is in their mid lane, and Doinb doesn't really care about gold when he's playing this champion on the Galio. He is effectively turned into that second support, the kind of play style that we saw him have a ton of international success on back in the day, and still seeing him be able to reclaim that form in some instances here in 2025.
Yeah, this is what you brought Naiyou in for, at least as far as I'm aware. You wanted to get Doinb back into his, main kind of play style. You want him to play Galio. You want him to be that, second support that can completely obliterate the macro game out of the mid lane, and that's what we're hoping to see out of him here in Game 3, but could once again be Climber on the bottom side here on this Lee Sin, just trying to farm his jungle that could be in trouble. We're already at the point where it could be tier 1 in the bot lane going down around 10 minutes. NIP are full investing into this. Will be all of the plates going down, and it's only a matter of time before the tower follows.
Doinb's not playing mid lane. He's playing like River Galio at this point, right? He's like, I'll farm a wave top, then I'll run bot. I'll help my top laner out there. I'll be down 20 CS. I don't really mind that. As we'll see if they try to dive XQW here as well. He's doing a nice job to clear this wave out, and with the resistances still up on this tier 1, going to take a little bit longer for it to go down. However, now with Niket joining the fray, it should be this tier 1 falling, and it does eventually. And a lot of LGD are on the top side of the map, so there's no chance to go for an extended play up there. Just going to be some extra plates and camps taken away.
Yeah, there is a ton of vision on the top side for LGD, no vision on the bottom side, and that tells me that they are not going to be even attempting to contest any sort of objective on the bottom side of the map. Dragon is spawning in 1 minute. We'll see if they want to maybe alter the game plan a bit, but for now, it's Naiyou on the top side, trying to at least catch the wave here, but with Climber shadowing Sasa, he does have to back off. This is quite a bit of damage going down onto the top tier 1. For now, though, it will just be a hopeful trade in the future. Some gold going over to the Jax to try to equalize his terrible early game, but still a win for NIP in total.
Now, this is the problem with just stacking one side of the map with your NIP. You are funneling gold into certain members of LGD, that being those solo laners, and these are champions that can still have a bit of an impact. It is hilarious to see Sauce's 0-3-0 actually having the gold lead over Solokill at this point, but that's what happens when you get to take all 5 of those plates up there. And this Jax still will be something that NIP have to at least consider. I wouldn't say worry about just yet, as they are still in a pretty good position, but you look up what was originally a 2,500 gold lead, Kman kind of has dropped to 1.5 off of just the way that these waves have been managed over the past couple minutes.
Yeah, it's well done by LGD, and that's the strength of their comp. When you look at Jax and Ahri, if you're not going to be able to get that Lee Sin spike in the mid game or in the early game, you're looking at a Jax Ahri, late game, side lane kind of comp. You want to be able to try and play out for, split push potential with Sasa potentially getting really strong in those side lane exchanges and no one really being able to answer him easily. If that does end up happening, then we could still see some pressure be put on by LGD, but much more difficult for them to do so with the Galio in the game than perhaps in a lot of other scenarios. Dragon will be started here by Ninjas in Pyjamas. This will be their second Drake of the game. Looks like it will be completely uncontested.
Yeah, Climber headed back to base. Not wanting to risk his life, at least preserve his perfect KDA at least for a little bit longer. It's going to be the second Dragon picked up the mountain, as it'll be a Chemtech Rift that will transform here on the Spirit Blossom map. NIP overall still very happy about the game state, although as we continue to mention, maybe little areas in terms of their rotations that they could tighten up. And these are all things that are good to note, as you, again, still now in Group Nirvana have this double elimination, or double round robin, I should say, meaning that there's going to be a lot more games for them to play this time around.
Yeah, you have to remember, you make a good point. LGD played 5 best-of series in split number 2. I see X potentially a little far forward here, but you know, this is a team that's still trying to find their footing, and Ninjas in Pyjamas, one of the few teams to make substantial changes going into split number 3 as well, and so they're also probably trying to find a lot of their footing in terms of where exactly they want to be from a shot calling perspective, from a communication perspective. You know, definitely things to clean up, but some great early game plays really show the potential of what this team can offer, and if they can close this out efficiently, now that you've got that first item Triforce completed on Viego, you've got Sivir hitting that Essence Reaver, you know, you're starting to be able to really ramp up and skirmish a lot more efficiently. You know, now that you're starting to reach those break points, you're definitely going to be looking to see how NIP react to this big lead.
And here, a little fun fact, you know, talking about all the roster turnover, is that during the Demacia Cup, which is, you know, the first broadcast that we had here on LPL English, NIP, the only player from that initial Demacia Cup roster is Leave, still on the team. 4 of the 5 players have swapped out since then, and there was this OMG core, then Doinb joined like a couple of days into the split. We're all down. We're all gone at this point. It goes to show, you know, both the kind of ship of Theseus that is formed here with Ninjas in Pyjamas, but also the fact that they are very willing to, I don't know, kind of cut off the infected hand in a way to try to find that level of success, which we can see be beneficial at times, but, you know, also showing that maybe it will be a little bit of growing pains for them. Even though we have seen some good moments from NIP, some struggles that they'll have to continue to sort out as we go throughout this regular season.
Yeah, I really like that point that you made. I really admire organizations that try to win, that consistently feel like, hey, if this isn't working, then what do we need to do to make it work, right? Like, where do we need to invest resources into? And, you know, consistently finding avenues to try to make your team better, whether it works or not, I think is, you know, admirable. And right now for NIP, at least through the beginning part of game number 3, it's certainly looking like they've made some substantial improvements going into this split. But we do see Herald spawning. It is alive on the map, and we see some teleports coming in. Galio will be making his way to the mid lane. Right now, it's a 4v4. Both top laners do have teleport available. Solokill, not quite yet, but will be in just a moment if they want to turn this into a 5v5 over the objective.
XQW throwing out that charm, only finding Doinb, who with that Merc Treads and Hall of Radiance not going to take a ton of damage from that, barely having that W shield even broken at this point. It looks like LGD do want to fight around this Rift Tower. Remember, they still feel like they are the team that has to skirmish at this point in the game. Now when you take a look at things, the 1,500 gold lead Savior is stacking up on those adorations. If they could find a kill here, would be big, as they're continuing to hunt around the pit.
Yeah, NIP playing very, very respectful in this. They understand that they have the shove in the mid lane, which makes it much more difficult for LGD to feel comfortable pushing entirely. Sasa gonna have to sit here and collect this wave, but could be Niket.
Yeah, landing here on XQW, who just gets completely caught out. Doinb the one to take him down, but Sasa is able to land a 2-man counter-strike. Hero's entrance comes out. The Q3 from Solokill is going to find another kill, as Leave is going to be the one to collect it. 2 more in favor of NIP. It's now 7-0.
It's the new support here for Ninjas in Pyjamas that really makes that play happen with a great engage on the Rakan. Great follow through by Doinb as well on the Galio, but it just goes to show the posturing, the setup around these plays. It's not always the best if you can't actually find your priority targets, and XQW was not able to find a priority target there. Luckily for LGD, Draven did not die in the exchange, but you know, they are now getting further and further behind on a comp that really can't justify it. We're going to see the engage here. We're going to see Niket just look for this. XQW just stepping way too far forward. We talked about this in the pregame, where this has been a consistent problem for him. He immediately gets exhausted, and from this point, the Ahri is just gone. Naiyou can't really, you know, involve himself in the play. Sasa, I should say, can't really get the reset and do anything in the play. Can't really, you know, affect the game at all on the Jax with his team dying around him, and it just becomes so difficult. But another big mistake coming out from XQW in the mid lane.
Dies with Flash and Spirit Rush up, by the way. He had both of those cooldowns available, but just got crowd control locked to Oblivion as he was playing on the margins, but fell off the balance beam a little bit at the end there. So, with that being said, it's 2 more kills for NIP. Point still stands though, where LGD they can't give up. at this point, they can't just sit back and farm because they know they could get outscaled if they are not able to find a fight soon. XQW, what the hell are you doing in there, my friend? Gonna get caught up by Doinb. Niket jumping in. He then uses the Spirit Rush to get away as LGD turn their sights towards the Chemtech Drake. A teleport comes in as Sasa will make it a 5v5. XQW jumping forward, find the charm on a Naiyou. Chunk him down to half HP. The Whirling Death through it a lot, and Niket is getting chunked out a little bit. The Naiyou jumps into the Rift Herald, knocks up 2, and will make sure YCX falls, and it's now Reset City in for Ninjas in Pyjamas. It's going to be the Dragon secured, but that's all Savior's going to get. It's going to be Climber jumping straight to his doom with a resonating strike as NIP pick up 4.
Oh, it's a disaster for LGD. It's beautifully played by NIP. One of the best looking fights that you'll see in terms of a setup around Dragon. Naiyou with an incredible fight on the Viego. I'm excited to see how that goes. They put so much pressure into Niket trying to take down the Rakan early on in the fight, but I think crucially, Savior not able to get the damage down. We're going to get the replay here. First off, you correctly pointed it out, XQW just entirely on the back end of this fight. He does find a nice charm onto Naiyou that forces his flash out, but he jumps into the Herald and starts getting the knockups coming in here. It actually completely shuts down Sasa's jump to stop his kill onto Niket, basically keeps his support alive, and from this point onwards, the fight is just over. Solokill is too massive. Naiyou is getting those resets, and Leave is free hitting on the backline. Draven getting shut down, not cashing in those adoration stacks. It's a dream fight for NIP. Not only are they able to grab the Dragon, they're able to shut down the Draven, and they're able to really push their gold lead.
6,000 gold, as you said, 11-0 at this point. Very similar to their game number 2 against LNG that ended up clinching the series for them yesterday. And NIP now looking like they could be the team to beat here in Group Nirvana. LGD no more at the top there, as they still have some things that they need to try to work out, some positioning errors, just the way things have worked here, specifically in the early games. Kman, things fall apart quickly for them if they don't get everything that they want. Yeah,
it's just mistakes. There's really nothing else to call them. These are mispositions coming in from a couple of key players, and these are things that are very fixable for a team like LGD, but they do need to be fixed right now. Ninjas in Pyjamas more than good enough to take advantage of those positioning mistakes, as we've seen very regularly, but you got to give NIP a lot of credit as well. For as much as we can talk about LGD making mistakes, it's NIP that are there to capitalize on those mistakes, something that they might not have done as efficiently as they're doing now last split. So good to see that this team is continuing to move forward, but no objective on the map outside of the Otacon for them to pressure, but it will be LGD actually starting this up. Galio is on the top side. Right? Yeah, he's got the teleport available.
We'll see if NIP can engage onto him. Solokill's on a massive flank. The Otacon's down to half HP already. XQW try to single him out, as now LGD will try to collapse upon the player trying to go for the flank in singularity, but there goes Niket. A 2-man knockup, and Climber is already down. Naiyou picks up that first reset, and LGD about to drop like flies. Savior falls. It's going to be YCX dropping as well, and NIP are up 2 touchdowns at 20 minutes.
There's nothing to do for LGD. They end up trying to peel off and go on the disconnected solo kill, but he's more than tanky enough to be able to survive pretty regularly. Good positioning by him to just back off and force LGD into a corner. Niket with an unbelievably good engage. He's been very good on the Rakan in this game. Get Niket on playmakers. He will make it worthwhile, but this gold lead continues to balloon, and at this point, it's looking harder and harder to imagine, a world for LGD coming back in this game.
Yeah, Niket having another good game here in the decider between these two teams. Let's take another look at this one. LGD tried their best to get on a solo kill. He's able to use the ulti to get some extra movement speed, and then, as you mentioned, Niket starting that wombo combo and knocking up 2 people.
Yeah, I think specifically getting on Savior at the start of this fight just makes it unwinnable for LGD. Your only source of real damage coming out in this mid-game is just completely locked down, CC chained into oblivion. One thing I want to point out that we talked about a bit in the early game, it is heal for Savior, it's not cleanse. And I think that could really be coming back to bite the Draven in a couple of these fights. Not that they're easy with or without the cleanse, but certainly something that we're seeing pretty regularly is that not a lot of room to auto-attack as a Draven when you're constantly getting CC chained.
You can make the argument there's a lot of knockups. How much value does Cleanse necessarily have? And they're just trying to play aggressive here in the 2v2 with the Heal Ignite. But yeah, would have been helpful in that instance to maybe get away from that charm. As now NIP moving their gold lead up to almost 8,000. It will become that once they take down this tier 1 turret. Still a ton of standing gold across the map in the form of these tier 2s that can now become the next target for them, as they'll have the Dragon to potentially claim in 35 seconds. And just the finishing touches now on in this game as LGD seeing things fall apart for them in that early game. Again, goes down to the bot lane 2v2 like we originally mentioned. You have to give credit to Naiyou as well for setting Solokill up for success on the top side of things. It's been really clean overall for NIP.
Yeah, I mean, they're playing the map incredibly well. You can see it when you just look at your mini-map there. In terms of just the setups, it's really difficult for LGD to feel comfortable walking forward. You know, even when they're walking immediately into vision. It's just difficult for LGD to play out the map from this point. That being said, as much as it is a 14-0 kill game, you know, the gold lead doesn't quite live up to 14-0. It's still ginormous and very difficult to come back from, but you still have a Jax that's been able to get a ton of pressure in side lanes, has been able to take down some towers, get some plates. You're only, 400 gold down on the RE. Like, there are theoretical ways to get back into this game. We saw Ninjas in Pyjamas with a similar lead in game number 1 have a horrific fight around Otacon where they just misposition their main, carries, and obviously not quite the same here in game number 3, but anything is really possible in the LPL. You never want to, count your chickens before they hatch, but, it definitely is looking good for NIP.
I'm counting those chickens right now, Kman. I'm just taking a little gander, taking a quick tally. It's not looking good for LGD. However, you do bring up a good point. I feel like NIP has left a good amount of gold on the map just due to the way that they've tried to overload in certain areas, and maybe that's come back to bite them in a little bit. Sasa has kind of the Baus scoreline where he's 0-4, but still has the gold lead. The problem is, normally when LR play with Baus, the rest of the team is further ahead, and that is not the position that they are in right now. Sasa likely not going to be able to 1v5 in potential team fights as we get closer to this Baron spawning, and NIP at this point kind of likely feel like they could just start up any fight that they want.
Yeah, I mean, there's no bad fight for a Sivir that's up 3,000 gold, a Viego that's up 3,000 gold. At that point, it's going to be pretty easy to negate a lot of what's coming through. You can even spell shield the RE charm, which is, a pretty unfortunate place to be if you are XQW feeling relatively, I'm not going to say useless throughout the back half of this game, but difficult for the RE to play this out. It's going to be tough for her to find a lot of good angles on these engages. It's going to have to be soon, though. If NIP just continue to push in and play, smart, controlled League of Legends, it's going to be difficult for LGD to be able to adapt. They're hoping and praying for a gigantic mistake.
Yeah, I mean, not just one. Probably like 2 or 3 gigantic mistakes at this point.
Yes.
I mean, we did see, multiple Otacon fights in a row kind of be tossed away by NIP in this series. Unfortunately, that didn't happen this time. So, NIP maybe have gotten past their kryptonite in a way. The gold lead's still about 7,000. The Baron has now spawned. I mean, if you're NIP, if you want to play it super safe, you can kind of just set up a situation where you wait for the dragon to go up, and then you can, kind of catch LGD off guard as they can't defend 2 places at the same time. But it looks like a teleport has come in with that spellbook for Niket. They're going to really try to clear this vision out on the top side and maybe just start this one up.
Yeah, I mean, NIP are in no rush. This is a team that scales incredibly well. The longer this game goes, the stronger they will get, and they're already in such a commanding lead. One player that I really want to highlight, you made a great point of this, Grapes, in draft. Naiyou is really somebody that they brought in to be, a game changer. You wanted him on carries. Here he is on Viego, and he had 3 kills pre-8 minutes into the game. This has been an incredible showing from him. He's consistently got resets in a lot of these fights, and now with the objective starting to spawn, we'll see how the objective control goes. Doinb is a little bit isolated here.
We're having some happy game moments, maybe Doinb in a 1v3. Leave, though, has joined, and in goes Niket. They might just be too strong to make sure their captain does not fall. Finally, it'll be Climber claiming the first kill of the game here for LGD. And now a 1,000 goal shutdown onto Leave. LGD finding 2 kills. And you don't say never here in the LPL, as maybe NIP flew a bit close to the sun there.
Well, it looks like we might have overcounted the chickens, because that was a decent mistake from NIP. It doesn't look like it's going to be too consequential. LGD can't really start up the Baron or actually pressure anything on the map from that, but it is a lot of gold going in favor of LGD. Those are some gigantic shutdowns on some pretty big targets, so we'll have to see what happens. Doinb just dashing forward, feeling invincible in terms of his setups, tries to be able to get himself out of here, but it's the double teleport that's immediately committed by LGD to full get onto this play that really makes this work out. Leave is actually a little bit out of position here. He has to burn the spell shield battlefield early, which is how XQW can really continue to put the pressure on Sasa as well. You know, those are the two players with actual gold advantages for LGD, and we saw that there, but even more action coming back.
Leave is just respawned and is running as fast as he can from base to the mid lane. It gave a little bit of a timer here for LGD. Contest that mid lane wave. But now their sights turn towards the Baron. LGD, unrelenting in their aggression. They're going to continue to try to force these fights because they know that is what they have to do to get themselves back into this game number 3. NIP on the way. Solar Flare not finding a stun, but slowing up to Doinb, throwing out a little bit of poke, and Leave playing very safe on this backline. Solokill doing his best to try to hunt out any potential flanker, but in goes XQW. They're looking for the backline, and there's Sasa flashing on the Leave once again. The Sivir is down, but it comes at the cost of Climber's life, and now it's a 4v4 across the map. Solokill hunting down Savior. They're diving the backline, and they will do so successfully as Naiyou picks himself up another reset. Doinb taunts up 3, but it will be the Viego going down. Solokill has to carry this one, but Sasa might just do a little more. He goes golden, but Solokill's too strong at this point. The Q3 will take him down, and it's a 4 for 4 with XQW now on the run. Solokill will try to chase him out, and it will be the ace picked up for NIP.
What a chaotic fight. It's a great start for LGD. They find the miracle angle. We talked about them needing to find multiple mistakes, multiple miracles. Well, once again, it's Leave who's too far forward and gets caught out at the start of that fight. It looks like Sasa might have the damage to be able to take over, but Savior unfortunately targeted down. Solokill, incredibly huge in that fight on the Aatrox, but look at this angle with Sasa right behind everybody on NIP. It basically forces Leave to step up. Solokill disconnected from the start of this fight. We'll see how he ends up getting in. He just ends up blast coning immediately on top of the AD carry. A great flash that ends up stunning him up. But this is great follow through by LGD. It's a really well played fight. If Solokill wasn't so strong on the Aatrox and wasn't able to destroy Savior, there was a chance this could have been disastrous for NIP, but they do stave off disaster. It is a 5 for 4 trade in favor of NIP, but still a lot closer than we were expecting, and these fights are actually a lot more competitive than maybe we anticipated.
You're right, Kman. I counted the chickens too early. Now the eggs are all over the floor, and it's my fault. We got the dragon started up here by LGD. Solokill and Sasa trying to just box each other out on potential flank angles as a 4v4 has been set up on the other side of the dragon pit. LGD don't necessarily want to flip this one as they know if it goes their way, it'll be the soul deny, but NIP want to make sure they claim this Chemtech soul. Dragon's now at 6,000. Both sides playing very cautiously here. Sasa jumps over the pit. They're going to look to try to force this right now. Niket goes in with the ultimate, but not finding a whole lot just yet. It's going to be the Dragon secured by Climber, but YCX dies first. Reset's now coming in as Naiyou has an opportunity to go crazy, but he goes into a pretty bad spot. The Heartbreaker forward, though, is going to save him as Naiyou, the new jungler, will shut down his old team. He gets himself a triple kill and NIP win the fight.
Oh, it's a huge fight for the Viego. It is the delay of Soul, which is pretty massive, but it looks like it is going to be Baron off of that victory. Naiyou really coming up clutch on the Viego. This was a very close fight, but it's really the first time where we saw a proper, I guess, control of the Jax throughout a lot of the exchange. Sasa was not able to get onto the backline as easily as he was able to in the previous fights. XQW's still in the area.
He gets stunned up. He didn't realize that Naiyou would not be on the Baron, and it's perfectly baited by the NIP top side. They finish off the delayed ace. However, they're going to go back to the Baron, and this could be a little bit risky with Climber respawning.
Yeah, Climber is on the way. They are not going to take this down by the time he gets here. If he is here, this is a very dangerous play for NIP.
Okay. Niket is here. Teleport's going to come in as Doinb will join as well. It'll be very difficult now for Climber to get in, as Doinb can just play bouncer around the Baron pit to make sure that this Lee Sin cannot have an opportunity for a steal. NIP fans can breathe another sigh of relief and exhale just a bit as they win another fight, a crucial one, and now will claim the Baron.
Yeah, this was a very, very dangerous exchange. I think the main difference between this fight and the ones we had seen previously, first off, YCX, completely stunned up, isn't even really able to get any CC off. He's just, you know, completely CC chained into oblivion, but Sasa also not really able to actually get onto the backline. Leave survives throughout most of the fight. It's a great job by Savior to pull back. He actually sneakily gets a triple kill here. Great job dodging the Viego ultimate as well, but it's a big fight for Naiyou and a big win for NIP that completely reestablishes their control over this game, even if things are getting a little bit dicier than they were before.
funny how after all that, the gold is actually in a better spot for LGD than it was like 10 minutes ago. Even though they won the Baron, they won that they won that fight. Things still on a razor's edge here, as the game continues to be a bit tenser than we expected after it being originally 14-0, which is a dominant early start here for NIP, but LGD not out of things just yet. However, things will become much more difficult now that the Baron buff is in the hands of Ninjas in Pyjamas. They're going to be hunting down these tier 2 turrets, trying to add to that gold lead, as they have Doinb pushing in the mid lane as well.
Yeah, this is a difficult job here for LGD to protect all of these towers. They did a good job clearing at first, and they do have at least a bit of wave clear. It's not super efficient because it's really just Ahri, but you know, they should be able to hold off, and as long as they don't make an egregious misplay, they shouldn't be able to really push forward on this Baron. We'll see if LGD, though, want to look for potentially something on the backline. You called it correctly. Doinb is mid lane. Climber is looking.
Ooh. Sonic Wave does not connect. They're looking for leave. Does have both of his summoner spells available, but could be a bit in danger. YCX tries to go forward, but in goes Doinb to the rescue and taking down the support of LGD. Flash forward from Solokill will seal the fate of the Ahri, and in goes the rest of NIP. Move on over, LGD. There's a new king atop of Group Nirvana, and his name is Ninjas in Pyjamas. Only Sauce is alive, as 4 members of NIP will take down the Nexus in Game 3.
It's a brilliant engage there by NIP to be able to chunk out the Ahri. Once she's down, she is dusted. LGD put up a heroic effort to try to come back from an unwinnable game state, but it's just not enough. Ninjas in Pyjamas establish themselves at the top of Group Nirvana.
And an 11-kill performance by Naiyou. Finally got his hands on a carry in that Viego in game number 3, and boy, did he make good use of it, as he goes in to fist bump some of his former teammates here on LGD. Sure, that feels good for him. Sure, it's a bit of a crusher here for LGD. But NIP up to a 2-0 start now in Group Nirvana.
Yeah, it was dicey. It looked a little bit concerning for a second. Game 2, late game execution, not really there for NIP. Game 3, late game execution, also a little bit suspect from NIP. I think that there are some things that they obviously need to work on as a team, but their outstanding early games were very prevalent throughout this entire series. Those big gold leads that they were able to generate were enough to push them through.
And now the question is just how far can they take this momentum? How long will this winning streak last? And for LGD, it's a loss, but it is a respectable one, I should say, against a team that did come from Group Ascend, that did take games off of top teams in the LPL, especially in that first round robin. And, you know, if you are LGD, definitely a little bit disheartening, but knowing that Group Nirvana is more difficult, more challenging this year, and you'll be, you know, continuing to be able to face those challenges as you go forth throughout the season, I'm sure they're feeling not the best, but knowing that there is a lot of room left to improve and a lot of time left to do it.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot to build on here for LGD. Honestly, quite a lot to like about the way that they ended up playing this out. I think that they were overmatched in the early game. They made some pretty critical errors that got them into unplayable game states, and yet somehow they were finding angles. They were finding fights, and I think, you know, a couple of players to really highlight. Sasa was very good here today for LGD. Really a standout player across the whole series, both teams included. Whether that be in team fights or in lane, he was consistently able to generate leads and, you know, pick up where, you know, things were given to him. In game number 3, obviously all of those towers and then finding angles in fights. But, you know, it's got to be more of a team effort. Climber, I think, showed some good traits here today. It's all about whether or not he can grow and improve.
And that's the thing with this LGD team, is finding consistent levels of that top tier gameplay. Obviously, Sauce had a great series today, but the question is, will it be able to be maintained into the continuing best of series throughout this season? I mean, that was something we were talking about with Kelsey behind the desk of production during our breaks. It seems like every series, there's a new player on LGD that steps forward and has a really good time. This time it was Sasa, maybe next time it's somebody else. When all of them can get to those peaks at the same time, that is when we will see this team at its fullest potential.
Yeah, it really feels like this org has consistently picked one player every split to be like, here you go, breakout split, you know, figure it out, you know, whether it be, you know, Hai Chao or Assume or, you know, someone like Xiaoshu previously. Like, they found a lot of avenues to have breakout stars in a couple of different positions. you're hoping that you get a couple of them this split, because I think you have those kinds of players here. There was a reason this organization felt comfortable promoting most of their LDL team at the beginning of the year, because that team was very successful in Tier 2 and had a lot of upside. We're seeing parts of that here. It's really just about, thinning out the edges a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, there still is a lot of promise on this team. Remember, like, a ton of rookies. Technically, Savior's like the most experienced player on this team now, and this is only his second year in the LPL, right? So we saw some good moments from him. Again, Sasa, I guess, is the ace of this series if we had to give it to somebody, as somebody who really stepped up in all of their games. Obviously got really heavily targeted in that final game that set him behind just a little bit, but still was able to do some good work regardless here. As you take a look here at the post-game stats, the last one of the series, pretty just well-rounded victory for NIP, and again, LGD, just if they did not get so far behind in the early game, I feel like they definitely had a good chance to win this one.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. I think that there were a couple of great performances in the back half of the game. Solokill had his best game of the series by far in game number 3 on the Aatrox, had many fights where he was just this big raid boss almost at the end that felt impossible to be able to take down, specifically that Baron fight. But it's these small mistakes that we're seeing on the screen. It's XQW stepping a little bit too far forward and getting caught out by Niket. It's, Sasa going in to try and salvage the play. It's, the early game mistakes coming out from Savior and YCX in the bot lane where they're really not, playing all that consistently. It's these things that separate teams that are able to compete at this level from, teams that, just look good in losses at this level, which we've seen from quite a few teams in the past. So excited to see if LGD can grow. NIP look as advertised at the moment. Again, you want to see them clean up their late games. That was something they struggled with previously, but hopefully with some more time to get used to the communication style with the new players coming in, that will improve. Yeah,
and these were good moments for NIP. Obviously, they're showing the NIP focus highlights first, and then we can turn towards some of the good sides here for LGD, where I think some of it started off with some oopsies, obviously, and maybe just some hubris, I guess, from Doinb and the like. But also it's just some nice collapses onto players like Leave, who were punished for being out of position at times.
Yeah, I think it was really heads-up play coming in from LGD, and they did this in game number 1 as well. They found opportunities to find NIP players who maybe thought that they were a little bit more protected than they were. The Doinb Leave collapse in game number 1 around Otacon was really nice, and this was a huge pick onto Leave. This ends up turning into a 4v5, or a 4-4-5, at least at the end of it. And honestly, for a lot of it, it looked very LGD favored. Sasa putting in a ton of work in this fight, YCX as well, but really just an overall team effort from LGD. The bones of a good team are there. It's just about building the entire rest of the body around it.
Yeah, and for NIP, going back to them, as they are the winners of this series as well. Very curious to see, how the newer players of this roster continue to improve and grow with this team as we move throughout the Nirvana regular season, because we saw some really great stuff out of Naiyou, obviously, here on this Viego. He ended 11-1-13, which is pretty insane. And Niket, I think overall, we would agree that he played really good in addition to the performances of Naiyou, obviously. Next matchup here for NIP is EDG in a couple of days. These are the two 2-0 teams. That's going to be an exciting one to watch.
Yeah, that's really it. I mean, that's, in my opinion, your battle for the top of Group Nirvana. Thunder Talk, obviously, in that conversation as well, but EDG have looked great so far to start up Group Nirvana. I think the young blood and the support coming in with Perukia, I think, has really reinvigorated some power and some players that maybe have not necessarily played up to their potential. I'm very excited to see how that series plays out.
I mean, it's great to be excited about these Group Nirvana games now, Kman. Maybe the LPL was cooking a little bit in their format, because the Nirvana group, this split, definitely feels a lot better than the one that it did in Split 2, at least for now. The games have been super fun. Naiyou winning the player of the game in that decider against his old team. Got to feel good for him.
Yeah, I mean, statement series, your former team, the player you came in and replaced, the team that you elevated this past split. You go to bigger and greener pastures in the summer split here, and you end up being able to take down your former team. It's got to feel good for Naiyou. Obviously, there are a lot of players to shout out here, but the Viego getting those resets as consistently as he was able to do. You look at those late game fights, it was the Viego that was really taking over.
Yeah, I mean, that last fight, being able to pick himself up those resets, or I guess not the last fight, but the one around the Dragon Soul where they ended up losing the Dragon but winning the fight. A lot of that was on Naiyou. That was when he fully was able to come online. And again, super excited to see what he can do with a player like Doinb that will be able to enable him. Just hopefully they don't play like 2 facilitators at the same time like they did in game number 2. But that's going to do it here for our coverage of this series. Ninjas Pyjamas taking their 2nd series win in Group Nirvana with a 2-1 win over LGD. But make sure you don't go anywhere. We got some Ascend action coming at you in just a bit. A rematch of the split 2 lower semis between Team WE and Invictus Gaming after this break.